Hello, it's Grammy. And by the way, my name is Antonia. It's 5 o'clock in the morning, so good morning to everybody. I've not slept but an hour or two. Um, I don't know, yesterday I kept thinking about making a video and never did. So I'm making it this morning. And what I had on my mind was all the jobs I've had in my life. So I sat down and wrote them out. And here's the notepad that's got them all on it. Because I've had quite a few jobs in my life. Not to mention being a mother to 2 children of my own. And then for 9 years, a mother of another child. And being a wife. So anyway, let me just start with my work history. My very first job was at Topeka Lodge here in Graham County. And Topeka's where I grew up, went to school. But at Topeka Lodge, I was a house cleaner first. Worked in house cleaning, and one of my very best friends worked there too, so it was kind of fun. It was both of us' first real job. But it was work. And then next, I was a waitress at Topeka Lodge in the dining room where we served family style. And I worked breakfast, lunch, and then had a break, and then came back for dinner. After I worked at Topeka Lodge, I left Graham County, and that's when I went to California and lived with my sister and her husband for a while, and then came back, and I went to work at Thunderbird Lodge, which is on Lake Santiva, which I've showed you in some of my videos. And I was a waitress there, and this was for breakfast and lunch. Then I married, and we moved to Alabama. And when I was in Alabama, I worked in a big store, kind of like Walmart or Kmart. I forget the name of it, but I worked in the shoe department. And I worked there. And then we moved to Lawrenceville, Georgia, which is just outside of Atlanta. And I worked downtown Atlanta in a costume jewelry store in Lenox Square Mall. That was an experience for me. And I also, at one point, worked in a cloth store in the back where we measured out cloth and cut it on big tables and stuff. I did that for a while too. I believe it was either before I went to the jewelry store or right after. I can't remember. But anyway, then we moved to Gastonia, North Carolina. And I had my first child pretty soon thereafter. And my first job in Gastonia was a cloth inspector in a plant. And what we did there is we had big, huge rolls of cloth. And they would, young men would bring out our cloth to our machine and put the bolts of cloth up high. And then we would have to pull it down over this table that was, like right here where we would inspect the cloth with our hands and our eyes, and we'd use little tools to take out what we called little trash, like little threads or whatever was caught in the cloth, and inspect it and mark anything that was a defect. And it would roll. You had a foot pedal, and it would roll the big roll of cloth down at the bottom, and then the young men would come and get that and take it off for you and put another one on. After I did that, I worked in a sewing plant and sewed comforters. I sit all day at a sewing machine and did straight line cutting on comforters for beds. I can't remember each job, the period of time I was there, but most of my jobs were at least about a year, and some more. So after I sewed comforters, I went into another sewing plant and I sewed elastic in flannel underwear. That was a very hard job. And it was production, just as the comforters were too. It was a production job. If you did so much, you got paid more. And this was in the 70s. And that was a time when it was almost impossible to get production. And if you did, it wasn't very much over the quota. And you tried really hard to get that extra dime or two sewing all day. And then my next job was at Belk's department store in Gastonia, because I really wanted to get out of the factories, the plants. So I worked in the garden center there, where they had house plants and things like that. And then during the Christmas season, it was transformed into the toy department. So that was fun, working in the toy department during the Christmas season. The parents coming in to pick out Santa Claus, and we had layaways. And when you'd ring up their layaway, a lot of the bags were stored on transfer trailer trucks in the parking lot at the department store, because there was so many. But it was fun watching parents, get Santa Claus and trying to sneak around and hide things from children, and that was fun. Also in Gastonia, I worked at an Auto Bell car wash. I didn't wash cars, but I was the girl that wrote up the tickets, and checked people out after their cars were done. Didn't do that job very long, probably maybe 6 months. And then I worked in another store, kind of like Kmart or Walmart, and I don't remember the name of it either. But I worked as a stalker and a cashier. And then the last job, I believe, the last job that I had in Gastonia was in a small engine filters plant. And we made small filters for small engines, such as lawnmowers and weed eaters and whatever. It was just the real small filters. And we had one production line, and it was in kind of like a warehouse. 2 men from South Carolina came up there to North Carolina and started this plant. And when they got it up and running, after they practiced, I guess, getting this production line working to make these small filters, they were going to move it back down to South Carolina. But anyway, I worked there for a pretty good while. And during that time is when my first husband and I were in the process of getting our divorce. My daughter I had to keep her in daycare when I worked. She hadn't started school yet. But anyway, we separated twice before we actually divorced. And I tried to stay down there in Gastonia, but it wasn't a good situation. So I moved back up here to Graham County so I'd have a little bit of family support from my dad and my stepmother. And so the first job I got when I moved back here to Graham County was at Burlington Furniture Plant, and here in Robbinsville. And I worked in the sanding department, I worked in the machine room, I worked in roughing, and every so often I'd help them out in finishing. So I did a lot of different jobs on different machines and making furniture. And the plant in Robbinsville made bedroom furniture. So anyway, when my daughter got of school age, I realized I didn't want to stay here in Graham County. And I was renting a little old house that I found that was abandoned, and found out who owned it, and asked if I could rent it, and nobody had lived in it in so long. They told me sure, but you know they couldn't charge me very much if I wanted to rent it, so they just charged me $100 a month, and if I did any repairs to it, I could take that out of my rent, which was a bargain for me. I mean, I wasn't making much working in the furniture plant and trying to raise my daughter. But that's what I did, because I wanted to be independent. I didn't want to have to live off my dad and my stepmother. So anyway, after I went to the plant personnel manager, and I talked to him about maybe transferring somewhere with Burlington to another plant, Well, anyway, he checked it out, and sure enough, I could transfer to Lexington, North Carolina. So I decided to do that. I went to Lexington, North Carolina, and I found me a little house to rent behind this couple that were just wonderful to me. And they had a little, just a little house behind their house. And it was just perfect for me. So I rented that house from them. They didn't charge me a fortune either. And it was kept up, and it was a pretty nice little house. So after I got everything squared away, then I moved down to Lexington and worked at what they called the table plant for Burlington. And they made dining room tables, dining room sets. So I was in the sanding department, and I sanded the edges of dining room tables. They would come out in, no, they wouldn't come out in, but we had buggies that had the two halves of the tables on them. A stack of the right side and a stack of the left side. And you'd go get your buggy and bring it to your workstation, and you'd take one half of the dining room table and place it up on your work table. You'd take the other half and place it, put them together, and these were round tables. And I sanded the edges. Like I said, I had a sanding glove that fit on my hand with a pad. And you would put your hand on the edge of the table and push the pedal to make the table go round as you sanded the edge. So I did that for a couple of years. And, well, it was about a year that I did that, and I started having trouble with my right hand. I started having pains here and in my wrist, and my fingers started drawing down. Well, for the longest time, um, they had a nurse at the plant, and they'd send me up to the nurse, and she would soak my hand, for like 30 minutes a day. Take me up to her station and soak my hand for 30 minutes and then send me back to work. Well, my hand wasn't getting any better, and it was just drawn. So they sent me to the company doctor. Well, he suggested I just keep trying that, keep soaking it, and which I did. And then, like I say, it wasn't helping. So they took me off of the job of sanding and gave me like piddly jobs to do, sweeping, picking up, moving carts around and all that. But even not using my hand, it wasn't getting any better. It was just getting worse and hurting. So I had to complain a lot about it before they finally did send me to a doctor in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, to have it looked at. And I had carpal tunnel syndrome, and they had to do surgery on my hand right here to relieve that swelling that was inside that was causing all that pain and pinching off my nerves. But it took them months before they actually did anything. So after I had my surgery and my hand healed enough, I was working. I was still, while I was all bandaged up, sweeping and moving buggies around and just helping people the best I could. But after it healed and it was a cast actually, when it came off, then they moved me into the machine room. And I helped tail machines, catch, like if it was a bandsaw and the person that was using the bandsaw put a piece of wood through, I'd be on the opposite side to catch the wood and put it on the buggy. Well, I did that, and then they put me on a boring machine, which was a drill that went straight down and routed out the fronts of, chair backs or whatever, or put the holes into the wood where there needed to be where it needed to be put together with other pieces. And then they put me on a lathe machine. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's a long, the one I operated was a long piece that had different sizes of blades on it, like this. And what you do is you'd put a piece of a table leg on each end of that machine, clamp it in, and then you had a lever that you pulled down that brought the blades down on that piece of wood. And you had to have a touch for it, how hard or how soft you let those blades go into that wood, and they were preset and adjusted to where those blades cut out the leg for that table leg. There's a funny story here. I got the knack of that job pretty good. I was doing really good on that job, and you know, it was just one of those factory jobs. It's just repetitive work all day long. Do the same thing over and over and over and over. But I had done that in Gastonia, so I was used to that kind of work. But anyway, I was running the lathe machine one day, and there was me and another man there, two of us that were running that particular type of lathe machine. And I needed to go to the restroom. So when I turned my machine off and went over there and told him, said, I've got to go to the restroom, I'll be right back in a minute. Yeah, okay. Well, in this plant, it was really an old plant, a brick building, like 2 to 3 stories high, very old. And the restrooms were just like a little closet. You just went in this little bitty closet to the restroom. We didn't have like a big restroom where 3 or 4 or 5, 6, whatever women could go in there at the same time. It was just a closet with a toilet and a sink in it and a little teeny square window. So anyway, I go in there to go to the restroom, and when I finished, ready to come out, I couldn't get the door open. I mean, for the life of me, no matter what I did, I could not get that door open. And I looked at the window, and I knew there wasn't any way I could get out of that little window. And it was like to the back of the building anyway. There wouldn't be, even if I hollered, there wouldn't be anybody to hear me. Well, if you've ever been in a plant at all, especially a furniture plant where they're cutting wood and sanding wood and all that, very loud. We had to wear earplugs, at work because it was so loud in the building. So I'm at the door trying to get out, hollering as loud as I can, hoping somebody will hear me because I'm locked in that little closet. Well, I don't know exactly how long I was in there. I would say about 30, 45 minutes, and the little cleaning lady came by. So she heard me, and she tried to open the door from the outside and couldn't get it open from the outside. So she had to go get somebody, and they came and they had to take the frame off the door to take the door down so that I could get out of the bathroom. Anyway, after I got out of the bathroom and went back to my lathe machine, the man that I was working, my work partner beside me, I came back and I noticed he just looked so sour and bitter. And I started to, work on my machine, but I noticed he just wasn't saying anything, so I kind of walked over there to him. I said, "You all right?" And he looked at me, mad. He said, "Where were you?" I said, "Did you not hear what happened to me?" And he's like, "No, what happened to you, And I told him, I said, "I got locked into the bathroom and couldn't get out." And I said, they had to come and when somebody finally did figure out I was in there and couldn't get out, they had to take the door frame off and everything to get me out of there. Well, his whole attitude changed then, and he started laughing, and we both laughed, because, it was funny that I'd got locked in the bathroom and couldn't get out, and he thought I was just, sloughing off from the job. So, anyway, that was my first job in Lexington when I moved down there, and my sister and I, her and her husband lived there, I guess about 7 miles from where I did. And my sister and I decided to start a cleaning business of our own to make a little extra money. So we had sisters' janitorial services. And what we did was homes and beauty shops. We didn't have very many, but we we were just getting started when everything kind of went sour down there. But we did do two beauty shops, and we had about 4 homes that we did, and we were trying to build it up to the point where we could actually make a business of it. But like I say, things went sour in Lexington, and oh, it just dawned on me. Excuse me, I am 71 years old. The reason it went sour in Lexington is because they closed the plant down that I was working at, the table plant. And so anyway, there I was without a job again. And that's my sister and I had already kind of tried to start that cleaning service, to keep us going. And anyway, I got involved with the Amway business, thinking I could make a little extra money selling Amway products. What a mistake. But anyway, at the time, I thought I might could do that. And of course, that's how I met my second husband. And he was from here, Graham County. And anyway, make a long story short, I got with him, married him, moved back up here to Graham County, and he had a motel in Bryson City, North Carolina. And I cleaned the rooms of the motel. And right off the bat, after we got married, I was pregnant. So I went from one little girl, he had a little girl, so anyway, I went from one little girl to his daughter, who was just a month or so difference between age of my daughter, to 2 little girls, and then I was pregnant. And then I had a third little girl. So I had 3 daughters, and we had the motel. And I was cleaning the rooms at the motel. And then the next job I had was with the census. And what I did was go out and drive around the county and made maps of where every dwelling was in the county. I had to go up every road all over the county. We had, I think there was about 4 of us that were doing the map work, but there was like 2 that dropped out pretty quick because they couldn't do it. And the third person couldn't work but just part-time, but I could full-time. So I ended up doing just about all the map work for the census here in Graham County. That was an experience. After that, wasn't long after that my sister and her husband divorced. They started having problems and divorced. And anyway, she went through her diagnosis of cancer and stayed with us for a while she took her chemotherapy so I could help her and care for her. But anyway, when she got able, then my sister and I tried to start an ice cream shop. And we were excited about that and felt like we could do pretty good. But and we did for a time. I'll not get into all the details about what went wrong. But anyway, then my husband and I started having a lot of troubles, and we separated. And I moved. My sister had already moved out of where we were and got her own place, and she let me come and stay with her. And needless to say, with everything that was going on, we just couldn't keep the ice cream shop afloat as much as we wanted to. It was just, with her not feeling well and me going through a divorce and my two daughters, and it just became impossible to try to keep the ice cream shop afloat. So anyway, then after that, I went to work at Papa's Pizza, and I worked there as doing everything. There was 3 young women my age, 3 of us. One was the manager, and then myself and another girl that worked the morning and lunch shift. And once in a while we'd help out at night, but we were there during the day. And that was Papa's Pizza. And I moved into my grandparents' house, which was empty because they both passed away. So I moved into my grandparents' house and was staying there until it sold, because my stepmother, my dad was gone by this time too. My stepmother and my aunt, my dad's brother's wife, because my dad's brother was gone, passed away too. So they were trying to sell the house. But I could live in it until it was sold, with and I didn't have to pay any rent, but I did have to keep the yard mowed and weed eated, and I took care of the furnace, which was old, and every year the lines had to be bled, and sometimes it would go out on me, and I was responsible for taking care of that. And I also helped put in a new water line, because the water line got bad in the house and had to get that fixed. So even though I didn't pay rent, I did have to spend money on the house. And I always bought wood in the winter because there was a fireplace in the living room. And if anything went wrong with that old furnace, I'd burn wood in the fireplace and just put up quilts to the entrances to the living room, and that's where me and my daughters would sleep if it got really cold. It was right there in the living room, if the furnace went out. The next job I had was at a glove plant here in Robbinsville, and we made gloves, sewed gloves. It was a nightmare. I don't know what company it was, I can't remember, but whoever was running it, they sure didn't know what they was doing. And I had worked in plants, back in the 70s, and this was pretty bad. The sewing machines were so old, the tables were old, the people they hired didn't know what they were doing, and I was having problems with my back sitting at the table because my chair wasn't the right height. The table wasn't level, whatever. And again, it was a production job, and you busting your butt trying to sew, all these mini gloves in a day's time so that you get those extra dimes. Because again, just minimum wage jobs. But I complained about, my back and everything, and they just went to the manager and talked to him about things that how things were. And of course, I got labeled the one that was causing problems and all. Anyway, I finally told him I was just going to have to leave. Was there any way that I could draw unemployment or something? I mean, I needed my job. I needed an income coming in. Well, no, of course not. And so I filed a complaint with um, the state on how I had been treated and the way the job was and everything, and had to go through that whole process. And that wasn't any fun. Like I say, that whole experience was a nightmare. Anyway, then I worked at the dollar store for a while as a cashier and stocker. And I also worked at our health clinic. I worked in the um, records department where we kept all the files on everybody that came to the health department. So I worked there for a pretty good while. And then I went to Cherokee Casino. I worked up there about 2 years as a gaming host. And I also worked at Fontana Village, which I show you on my videos. I worked there like 7 years off and on, different jobs. I worked in the gift shop, at the dam. I cooked at the Peppercorn Inn. I cooked at the cafeteria. I did housekeeping. I cleaned, and then I was the assistant director of housekeeping. I worked at the front desk. Trying to think. I also went to school and learned how to drive a school bus. So I drove a school bus for 3 years and worked at Fontana in the day, and drove the bus in the morning and come home in time to drive the bus in the afternoons. Then the next job I had, like I say, I'm older, so this may be a little bit out of sequence, and I can't remember exactly how long I said that before, but I was a waitress at a barbecue. Worked there for a year or so, and then I worked at Dill's Gap Grill. That's where the motorcycles, it's a motorcycle resort, and the Dragon, where motorcycle goes from North Carolina over into Tennessee, and it's called the Dragon. And I worked at the Dill's Gap Motorcycle Resort in the grill, and I did anything and everything that curtailed. Out in the dining room, cashier, cook, cleaning person, everything. As far as the restaurant went, the grill. And then the last job, let's see. Oh, also when I worked over at Fontana Village, I cleaned employee houses some. And these were the houses that they had for employees that came in there from other places than here in our county. And they could rent a little employee house and work at Fontana. And when they would leave, a lot of times those employee houses would just sit after they left, and they wouldn't get cleaned until somebody else wanted to rent them, or they knew the season was coming up and they would need them for somebody coming in to work. And oh man, they were bad. But I did clean employee houses to help make extra money. And also when I worked in housekeeping as a I believe I was still a cleaner then. I drove a shuttle bus from work to home every evening and shuttled women to work in the shuttle bus they had. It was just a large van that we used. But anyway, that's my work history. Just to let everybody know that Antonia Grammy now has had a lot of jobs in her life and did some really hard work, plus raising children and doing the school activities and uh, keeping up a house, doing all the things, other things too. And now it's like 15 to 6. I guess I've talked way too long on this video. May not even be able to post it. May be too long. But anyway, that's what I was thinking about yesterday, about what I could make as a video, just to let y'all know more about myself. So I hope y'all have a good day, and I'm going to do my best to have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.